Hi, Ian Roberts and Mastering Composition. So this week we're going to talk about abstraction and what it is and clarify some ideas on it because it is a big topic. And so I think we have some very helpful ideas, concepts around it today, and then next week I'm going to do a demonstration that kind of puts them more into practice. So this is more theory, next week more practice. So first I want to quote Maurice Denis. He was a protege of Gauguin, sort of late 1800s. Remember that a picture, before being a battle horse, a nude, or some sort of anecdote, is essentially a flat surface covered with colors assembled in a certain order. So basically he's saying that all painting is abstract, right? And abstraction means to draw away from. And so we've got three-dimensional world, we've put it on a two-dimensional plane, that's a drawing away from the world. And what's interesting is the word subtract, which is sort of central to simplification, is the same root. And we'll find that actually abstract, simplification, subtraction are all kind of contained. So let's define terms for a moment, because normally we think of representational art and it goes towards abstract art. But if it's all abstract, that's not a very useful distinction. So let's use representational to non-representational, all of it being abstract. It's sort of a range, right? So this week there's two main ideas. That range, the nature of that range of representation to non-representation, and then a look at 4 paintings from the history of art that shows the lens artists were looking at historically that manufactured the degree of abstraction they had. So let's have a look at a diagram. Start. The whole thing we can see is abstract in a scale of representation to non-representational. So we can see tightly rendered, say, photorealism at this end and completely abstract paintings, say like Jackson Pollock or something here. Of course, there's the possibility of going further out even than that to more abstract, like conceptual work, but let's keep it within the range of painting itself. And here we might say that the kind of painting that probably interests most of us, I would imagine, would be sort of Sargent and Zorn to, I don't know, Diebenkorn, figure studies, Ocean Park might be down around here, let's say. Let's look at some paintings that illustrate this idea. This is a painting by Charles Bargue, 1878, French academic painter. Impressionism had already been around for 10 years, but you look at this, there's an incredible degree of finish, astonishing degree of skill. This is a British painter, Patrick George, who just died a few years ago. But again, you can see here a very painterly way. He's searching out his shapes, sort of fresh, as he's kind of figuring out the shapes as he goes along. And then we have Sargent, where you see the brushwork is an abstraction of what's actually there. And then a painting by Matisse of 1916, I think. And again, you can tell what everything is. It's completely representational, but it's a very different mindset about how he's going about it. This is George Braque. You can tell what everything is. It's representational. He's just pushed the degree of representation, so it's becoming more and more abstracted until we come to Jackson Pollock, and we can say this is completely non-representational, non-objective. The surface of the painting is the object, and we have to create whatever meaning out of it. It's self-generated. We have to create it ourselves. So the second main idea is the idea that the history of art is the history of ideas. The artists see through the lens of ideas. And the word idea comes from a root meaning to see or vision, right? So I'm going to show 4 slides that illustrate this idea. And what we're seeing is that art has this kind of stylized convention. It creates this stylized convention that is like a lens or an abstraction that the artist sees the world through. And then there's like this break, and it comes back to looking at nature fresh again. And today there's so many different conventions and lenses that we're looking through, but each one of us has our own lens or conventions that we're looking at in terms of how we see art. That's not bad, but it sort of helps to try to understand it perhaps through the lens of, or through the lens we could say, of one of these 2 ideas I'm talking about today. Representation to non-representation and the kind of stylization we're looking for. Each month I've created for free 4 videos themed around one idea. This month, abstraction. Next month, finding inspiration. As well, When you sign up for these themed videos, you will also get, for free, an overview of composition, 4 fundamental principles to create better paintings. You can click up in the top right there, or go to ianroberts.com to sign up. Now, back to the video. This is a painting by Parmigianino, 1535, and it's a mannerist painting. Mannerist meaning, well, there's a manner to it. You just look at the way she holds her hand and look at her face. It's not, that face isn't the least bit realistic. It's beautifully painted. But there's a very stylized convention that's being held to. And it had been going on since the Renaissance and continued for quite some time. So by 1600, Caravaggio comes along and he says, I'm taking those lenses off, that lens of mannerism, and I'm going to look at nature directly. And it's still a two-dimensional surface, an abstraction, but he has taken the lens off to look directly at nature for the inspiration, no longer looking through the lens of a style. So here's a landscape, 1840 or so, and it's very stylized as well. The sense of space, the figures in the landscape, you see how brown all the grasses and the trees are. It's a very stylized way of looking at a kind of idealized an idealized sense of what nature is. And then 1869, Monet's like, I'm taking those glasses off. I'm looking directly at nature. I'm getting rid of that convention and I'm looking at what I'm looking at, and I'm going to paint that. Then by 1920, his paintings, although still representational, becoming more and more abstract, almost like color field paintings in the 1960s. And you just sort of have to admire the scale of them. So like I said at the beginning, the idea of taking on abstraction in a 7-minute video, it was a big topic. But next week I want to do a demonstration that kind of shows some of these ideas in practice, so that kind of brings them home a little bit more. And obviously we can just use the expression to make more abstract. If you've got a type painting and you want to make it more abstract, I mean, obviously it makes sense. And I want to show you some examples next week of both my own work and some other painters where you just see over the decades, it just keeps getting more abstract, and that's something that I'm working with myself. So listen, have a great week. I hope this was useful. Please do like it if you enjoyed it. Join me next week where I sort of try to put all the ideas into practice, and I will see you next Tuesday. Bye for now.